Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Ladar Greve-Lazi, and coming up in today's newscast. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant issues a harsh warning on the Lebanon border to terror organization Hezbollah. ILTV sits down with founder of United Hatzalah, Eli Beer, to hear the remarkable story on how he established this life-saving organization. And in a major scientific breakthrough, Israeli researchers have developed a minuscule human heart model. Using unusually harsh words, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant is warning Hezbollah terrorist leadership in Lebanon against any provocations against Israel. While visiting Har Dov on the tense border, Gallant warned terror chief Hassan Nasrallah that Israel will not hesitate to use all its power and could return Lebanon to the Stone Age. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz reports.
In recent months, Hezbollah activity has repeatedly been spotted along the Israeli border in incidents that Israel sees as deliberate provocations. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has had enough. While visiting Har Dov on the tense Lebanese border, Gallant used dramatic words to send his message to terror chief Hassan Nasrallah.
ואני מזהיר את חיזבאללה, את נסראללה, לא לעשות טעות. עשיתם טעויות בעבר, שילמתם מחירים מאוד כבדים. אם חלילה תתפתח פה הסלמה או אירועים מלחמתיים, אנחנו נחזיר את לבנון לעידן האבן.
Gallant was updated on the defensive efforts being made along the border and progress on the construction of the barrier to replace Israel's border fence with a taller concrete wall. The defense chief said that Israel does not want war, and if imposed on us, the cost to Lebanon will be immense. Shortly after Gallant's remarks were reported, the Lebanese army took foreign journalists on a tour along the Israeli-Lebanese frontier. They stopped along the way to describe alleged border disputes with Israel. Israel and Lebanon do not have a formal border and largely abide by the so-called blue line, marked with blue barrels along the border, and is several meters from the Israeli fence in some areas, which is built entirely within Israeli territory.
And as Israel continues to face security challenges today, it also faces unprecedented social, political, and demographic challenges, as well as challenges with its relationship with diaspora Jewry. Some are even questioning whether the fabric that binds diaspora Jewry and Israelis will remain intact. And so joining me now in the studio to discuss is veteran statesman, historian, politician, and author Michael Oren, who has set out his vision for Israel over the next 25 years in his latest book, 2048, The Rejuvenated State. Ambassador Oren, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you, Ladar. Thank you.
So you've served as Israel's ambassador to the United States, as a member of Knesset, as an esteemed member of the academic community. You've seen it all from different angles. What will it take for Israel to overcome the challenges before it? And, what will Israel look like in 2048?
Well, first of all, we won't be able to overcome any of the challenges if we understand them and face up to them. Ignoring them is not to make them go away. You mentioned this book that just came out. It's called Israel 2048, The Rejuvenated State. It's a book that originated in a conversation I had with the Prime Minister about 5 years ago, saying, listen, we never talk about the future. We're so bogged down in our current crises like now. We really don't think about tomorrow, much less about 25 years from now, our 100th birthday in 2048. We have to start thinking about it now. And it's interesting, when I sat down to write the book, I wrote a chapter about the need to reform the judicial system, the Supreme Court, in a way that was very measured, the way judges are chosen, the scope of the Supreme Court, many of the issues that we're dealing with now, but in a way that also preserved the checks on government. And if we had addressed that issue 3-4 years ago in a serious way, maybe we wouldn't be in the mess we're in right now. And so the book deals with some very serious challenges with the Bedouin communities, with the ultra-Orthodox communities in this country and the challenges that they pose, but also in Israel-diaspora relations. This year I'll be embarking on a number of trips for the Jewish National Fund and talking to diaspora Jewish communities in the United States and elsewhere about ways in which we can talk openly about the issues that divide us and how we can overcome them. And one of the biggest issues I can identify is, okay, Israel defines ourselves. We define ourselves as the nation state of the Jewish people. What does that mean? What responsibilities do we take on ourselves? And what responsibilities do diaspora Jews have toward the Jewish state? And we have to discuss these now, or else in the future we can find ourselves incapable of discussing, be too late. And very important to do it right now.
Right now. You know, some commentators in the media note that the relations between diaspora Jewry, as you mentioned, and Israel are at an all-time low. I mean, is this truly the case, do you think? And you mentioned that you're embarking on a series of tours. So what should Israel be doing now to keep sort of the channels of communication open?
It's important, though, I think, to keep it in perspective. When we talk about diaspora, and by the way, a lot of American Jews sort of react negatively to the notion that they are actually in a diaspora. You actually don't use that term when you're talking to many North American Jews. Certainly South American Jews, yes. If you go to Europe, if you go to South America, you go to South Africa or Australia, you don't have that type of tension between Israel and these communities the way you have certainly in the United States of America, where you have a much broader spectrum of opinions in that community and a much bigger Jewish community. And in segments of that American Jewish community, you have young, liberal American Jews who feel particularly disenfranchised from Israel. They feel alienated from Israel. They don't understand the trends that are occurring here, and they're difficult to understand, frankly. And we have to reach out and try to maintain open channels of dialogue, to understand that Israel is not the United States of America. We live in a very different neighborhood, and we have to understand them and the situations they face. I've been very involved with helping pro-Israel organizations on American campuses. And I think it's almost impossible for Israelis to understand the type of challenges these young people face. It's quite extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And we know what the challenges our young people face, but wow. And not easy to be a pro-Israel student on many American campuses. And we have to help them. We have to reach out and keep those channels open.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, you know, I also want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the normalization deal that seems to be possibly taking shape between Israel and Saudi Arabia. It may soon be on the table. How do you see negotiations? You know, talk about looking to the future. How do you see the negotiations playing out? And, you know, what would a final deal potentially look like? Well,
first of all, I think it's a unique confluence of interests here. The President of the United States, President Biden, needs a diplomatic victory. He's entering a presidential race in 2024 where his numbers are not particularly good right now. He has to bring the Saudis back into the American sphere of interest away from the Chinese and the Iranians. The Saudis want American arms. They want arms guarantees, security guarantees vis-a-vis the Iranian threat and the State of Israel. And the State of Israel would very much like peace with Saudi Arabia, which would then open up the entire Sunni world. It's not just peace with Saudi Arabia, it's peace with Pakistan, with Malaysia, Indonesia. Vast markets could possibly open before us, basically the end of the Arab-Israeli conflict. But there's one little hitch. The Israeli government has to give a gesture toward the Palestinians, which under the current political configuration is very, very difficult. I think that one of the reasons that the government was certainly the prime minister was so intense on passing this law, which revised the reasonableness clause that the Supreme Court had used to negate the candidacy of Aryeh Deri. You remember this? Was that the Prime Minister wants to bring Aryeh Deri back into the cabinet. And Aryeh Deri, everyone's very focused on his criminal background, but he also has a diplomatic background. He's very moderate. He had supported the Oslo Accords back in the 1990s. So I think the Prime Minister wants Deri in the cabinet to counterbalance some of the very radical right-wingers in that government. I think he very much wants, Benjamin Netanyahu wants to give that gesture to the Saudis, and that will be frankly, a game changer. I can't think historically of anything as big as this, going back as far as the Egyptian-Israeli peace of 1979. If we can make it happen, it will be amazing.
Absolutely. And so I just, we're almost out of time, but I just want to ask, one final thought. Despite all the challenges that we face today, it seems that you do remain optimistic for the future.
How is that possible? Well, first of all, I am an historian, and I knew what this place looked like in 1948. No allies, 600,000 Jews in this country with really nothing, and look what we created. But also, I've been in this country a very long time, and I've seen this country go from being a completely isolated country in the 70s with peace with nobody, not even with Egypt and Jordan, nothing with Africa, nothing with South America, with not China, India, anything, a lower middle class country that had, our major export was orange juice. And I've just seen in my own lifetime miracles happen. You cannot have that type of perspective without being optimistic. We are facing very serious challenges. I don't want to minimize them in any way, but I think we can overcome them. Absolutely. Ambassador Michael Oren, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Thank you.
And moving on, anti-terror operations continue unabated in two major busts. Israeli security services uncovered a Palestinian terror cell in Judea and Samaria directed from Lebanon. And a Gaza drone smuggling effort was thwarted by a K-9 unit. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
According to the Shin Bet, a terror cell operating in Nablus in northern Samaria was directed from Lebanon by Lebanese-based Palestine Liberation Front activist Alam Kabchi, who recruited and operated the cell. Palestinian residents recruited by Kabchi were arrested for planning to carry out shooting attacks on Israeli civilians. Originally from Nablus, Kabchi is the PLF coordinator for terror attacks in the territories, says the Shin Bet. A number of Palestinians recruited by Kabchi were arrested, including Marad Kabchi, a relative and resident of Balata in Nablus. Weapons were recovered from the terror suspects. Meanwhile, a Gaza drone smuggling attempt was thwarted by Israeli military canines. Security guards and a K-9 unit at the Erez crossing were responsible for catching the smuggling attempt to bring in 10 reconnaissance drones. The drones were concealed within a black bag inside a minibus. A statement by the Defense Ministry said that the drones were intended for terrorist groups operating in the Gaza Strip. During the inspection of the vehicle, a specially trained K-9 unit detected the suspicious package. The dogs were trained to sniff out odors from mechanical devices.
Australia is reversing official terminology relating to the Arab-Israeli conflict to Israel's detriment. From now on, says Canberra, it will refer to Judea and Samaria or the West Bank as occupied Palestinian territories. The Jewish community is outraged by the decision. More in the following report by Debo Klein.
The terminology West Bank is used by much of the world to refer to territories captured by Israel from Jordan in the 1967 war. Israel refers to those territories by their geographic, historic, and biblical names, Judea and Samaria. In a move applauded in Jerusalem at the time, Australia stopped referring to the West Bank as occupied in 2014. Now they plan to revert to that terminology and will refer to Judea and Samaria as occupied Palestinian territories. Canberra also announced that it once again considers Israeli settlements in Judea and Samaria to be in violation of international law. Australian Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong told Parliament Australia would remain a committed friend to Israel. She said the changes reflect legal advice and UN Security Council resolutions and will have Australia use the same language as the UK, New Zealand, and Europe. The Executive Council of Australian Jewry said in response that they are deeply concerned by the decision, describing East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Gaza as occupied Palestinian territories effectively denies any Jewish claim to the areas. The statement added, Canberra was only made capital of Australia in 1913 when the city had to be built from scratch, whereas Jerusalem has been the capital of the Jewish people for over 3,000 years.
And moving on, United Hatzalah is known in Israel as an organization synonymous with saving lives. Its innovative approach to medical emergencies has revolutionized this field in Israel with responses of up to 90 seconds. And so joining me now is the man behind the organization, responsible for saving countless lives in Israel and abroad, the founder of United Hatzalah, Eli Beer. Eli, thank you for joining us.
My greatest pleasure.
So we know that United Hatzalah is a life-saving organization with a network of over 6,000 volunteers. But, how did this come to be? Where does this story begin?
Well, it started as a dream of mine as a little child when I was exposed to a terrible bomb attack on a bus in Jerusalem when I was only 6 years old. And I saw people just laying there and waiting for help. I was a little kid. I didn't really understand the scenario, but I saw people screaming. I saw the smoke. It was a bus that blew up on the number 12 bus in Beit Vagan, where it was a neighborhood where I lived. And I saw taxi drivers coming and picking up people into the buses. And it was, the scene was just following me for years. And I couldn't let go of the thoughts, whatever happened to the person I saw on the floor. So when I was 15 years old, I went to volunteer in an ambulance, and I realized in the ambulance in Jerusalem, most of the time it just takes us too long to get to people who really need us, people who are not breathing. our average response time was over 17 minutes. And I realized that ambulances are stuck in traffic while motorcycles are delivering pizza and hamburgers. And I said, if I ever choke, I'm calling for a pizza. And that's what I was thinking about as an ambulance, member, a team member in an ambulance. I would never call an ambulance if I choke. I'll call a pizza, because I saw the motorcycles going through traffic and never getting stuck. And that's where the idea started. When I was 16 years old, I got my friends to get involved. We bought a few old pizza delivery bikes and a few walkie-talkies to tap into the ambulance system to hear their emergency calls.
And so tell me more about the organization itself and the work that you do. I mean, how is United Hatzalah able to be such an efficient organization when it comes to saving lives?
Well, our goal is 90 seconds, and that's all I care about. I look at United Hatzalah as the bridge, as a gap to fill in the gap between an emergency happening until an ambulance arrives. And that could be 15 to 20 minutes in some places. It could be 5 minutes, but we get there, and our goal is to get there in 90 seconds. So if I want to make United Hatzalah even more efficient, I'll get more volunteers, train more and more people, buy more ambucycles. We have now almost 7,000 volunteers. We have over 1,200 ambucycles. These motorcycles you see everywhere in Israel. We disrupted the system. We realized ambulances are not good enough to save people's lives. You need a little more than that. You need a volunteer in the community.
And so you've recently published your autobiography titled 90 Seconds, and it's full of inspirational stories, including your miraculous recovery from the COVID-19 virus. So what are some of the highlights you can point to? Why read this book?
Well, the book is right here. It's 90 seconds. That's my goal. It's a very simple goal. 90 seconds to every type of emergency in Israel. And to start it was very hard. When I bought these motorcycles, I didn't know what I was doing. I had an idea. I wanted to get to my next door neighbor and save that person's life, that little baby, that drowning kid. That's what I wanted to do. So I started by buying walkie-talkies in Radio Shack and smuggling it into Israel and breaking into the ambulance system to hear their calls. And the story is incredible. It's a child who wanted to learn and wanted to save people's lives and broke through the norm and disrupted the system. It wasn't easy, a lot of hurdles and challenges. Getting the volunteers, training them, getting the information about emergency calls, getting the funding. How do we fund this thing? This is incredible. This organization, every time we buy an ambucycle, it costs the organization $36,000. Where do we get that money from? Who pays for it? It's all donations. So how do we do it? It's all in the book, including the story of my own life, how I grew up in Jerusalem, my family, and then finding my way into United Hatzalah and building it, and then getting sick 3 years ago while I was traveling to Miami and being on a ventilator for 1 month and saying goodbye to my kids right before they put me on a ventilator. I had to call my children and say goodbye to them. I never thought I'll ever wake up. I was sure I will die like the rest of the people who are putting on ventilators then, like in New York, like in Italy, like in France, like in other places. I said, okay, I did my share. I was 46 years old, and I built United Hatzalah. I could just go and say goodbye to everyone, and that's what I did. And then I woke up a month later, and I arrived to Israel thanks to incredible help and support I got from friends, and this is all in the book. It's really interesting.
So, what led you to write this book? I mean, did you decide to write it after your near-death experience with COVID? I mean, why write it now?
That's a great question, because for years people were saying you should write a book, you should write a book. I didn't have time. I wasn't interested in, PRing my life. I wanted to build United Hatzalah, and after what happened to me and I saw how many millions of people were watching and following my story, I wanted to inspire more people to do good in this world. This world has so many bad things, so many things. Just look around what's going on. Just watch the news, not your news, watch the other news and see the bad things that are happening in the world. They're not showing the good things that are happening. Israel is full of goodness. They have so many incredible people in this country. I have a volunteer who's a garbage truck driver, and he has a job for 12 hours a day or 10 hours a day. He's taking a big, huge garbage truck and he cleans the streets. And he's a volunteer of United Hatzalah. And his life changed because he heard about my story. And he said, if Eli Beer could have done it when he was 16 years old, I could do it. And this guy who's driving a truck has a defibrillator trauma kit inside the truck, and he responds to emergency with it. And he saved a little kid choking 4 months ago. And I said, if that inspired this garbage truck driver to become a volunteer, this could inspire millions and millions of people to become good people and do good stuff, because we need more and more doing good in this world.
And so to our viewers watching this, if someone would want to contribute to this operation somehow, what are ways that people can be involved, and what is essentially the constant act of saving lives? Well,
first of all, go buy the book. That would be the best thing. It's simple on Amazon or maybe bookstores near you. But it's very simple to start by reading the book. And also, if people want to contribute, it's very easy. It's very tangible. You could donate a defibrillator. You could donate an oxygen tank or an ambucycle, an ambulance. Go on our website, israelrescue.org, and support this life-saving mission, which is so crucial for this country. We could have a normal day where just car accidents and heart attacks and strokes, almost 2,000 emergencies a day. Or we could have surprises, unfortunately, once in a while and have a war or a terrorist attack. We are always there first. And if you want to impact the lives in Israel, this is a great way to go on israelrescue.org and support United Hatzalah. Go on our social media, United Hatzalah, and go on Instagram, share and get other people involved. That's another way of supporting. So just talk about it. We need the voices. We can't do this alone.
Absolutely. Eli Beer, thank you so much for sharing your inspirational story with us and for this incredible life-saving organization.
Thank you, and hope to see you soon in Israel, the Holy Land.
And now, Israeli researchers have recently revealed that a miniature human heart created synthetically in a lab is now fully functional and is set to make major advancements in the field. More on this incredible story is ILTV's Devo Klein.
Israeli researchers have revealed a groundbreaking invention that is set to revolutionize the field of cardiovascular research. They have developed a miniature functioning human heart. The team was led by Professor Yaakov Nachmias, director of the Grass Center for Bioengineering at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, along with Israeli researchers from the Technion, Israel Institute for Technology and Tissue Dynamics. This study, published in Nature Biomedical Engineering, introduces a self-paced multi-chambered human heart model no larger than a grain of rice, which promises to revolutionize the way we study the heart and its functions. It offers an ethical alternative to the most commonly used and often criticized animal heart testing method. One of the most significant features of this heart model is its ability to provide real-time measurements of essential parameters. This capability enabled the researchers to gain unprecedented insights into the heart function and diseases, making it a game changer in the field of cardiovascular research. Cardiovascular diseases remain the leading cause of global mortality, underscoring the critical importance of this pioneering work. As such, with this tiny heart model, researchers are poised to make significant strides in developing safer and more effective medications for patients worldwide, potentially saving lives and improving patient outcomes. It will also help advance our understanding of cardiovascular diseases and ultimately contribute to a healthier and more sustainable future.
Let's take a look at the weather forecast now. Partly cloudy skies are expected tonight throughout the country with lows of around 22 degrees Celsius or 71 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, mostly sunny skies alongside steady top temperatures of around 33 degrees Celsius or 92 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channel, subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and don't forget to check out our new and improved website, ILTV.tv, with all the latest news from the heart of the State of Israel. I'm Ladar Gove Lazi. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.